This is the Moog Labyrinth, and it's a dual generative sequencer. It can be used as a standalone synth to make things like quirky sequences and stuff like drum sounds. You can pair it with other semi-modular synths to sound like this. You can combine it with a modular synth setup to make it sound like this. And you can drop it into a Eurorack case and make sounds like this. Labyrinth has two sequencers, as shown by these two rows of lights over here. And each sequencer is generative, which means that each sequencer sends out a random CV value for every step. You can't choose which notes play on each step like you could with the M32 or the Von Gogh replay, but you can choose the scale that the random notes play in. You can choose the range of the notes, and you can also choose how random you want the rhythm and the notes to be. I think Labyrinth's biggest strength is in its randomness, but you have a lot of control over what is random. You can dial in an exact rhythm for each sequence. And you can control the range of the notes it plays. You shift the sequence over one step with the pitch shift. You can choose to make the notes random or the notes and the rhythm random, changing the original rhythm you created. I think it's easiest to show the sequencers in action by sending each one out to a different oscillator. And there's a CV output for each sequencer, so I'm going to be sending one into the EQD wave transformer and the other one into the Dreadbox Hysteria. After that, we're going to look at how the sequencers work when you use the Labyrinth alone. So here's the oscillator from the wave transformer, and here's the Dreadbox one. So I'm going to send the CV from sequencer 1 into wave transformer. And I'm going to send the CV from sequencer 2 into the Dreadbox. And here's both sequences at once. And so obviously you can tune each oscillator and change the waveform. And all that sounds like this. Labyrinth is made up of two 8-step sequencers, but you can turn it into one 16-step sequencer by using this button over here. I'm going to create a 16-step sequence, and I'm going to run it through this pedal. Labyrinth has a sine wave oscillator, and that sine wave oscillator can be modulated by a triangle VCO to produce an FM voice. And that can be altered by a filter and a wave folder. These can all change the sine wave oscillator in drastically different ways, and there's a ton of ways to control that. So I'm going to show you an extreme example to make it more obvious. The the filter is going to help create some white noise cymbal sounds, and the wave folder is going to help make some low note bass sounds. When I turn the blend knob towards the wave folder, you can only hear those bass notes. And when I turn it towards the filter, you can hear more of the white noise from the filter. You can use the wave folder and filter in parallel, send the filter into the wave folder, or the other way around. This usually can result in a bunch of different sounds and give you a lot of control. The two sequencers have identical controls and are virtually the same. Each sequencer sends out a different CV value during each step, but you can quantize them and set them to specific scales with a simple combination of buttons. There are 16 different options of scales, and you can tell which one you're on depending on which LED lights up. You can change the amount of steps in each sequence by pressing the length button. You can shift the steps of the sequence over one step by pressing the bit shift button, and turn steps on and off with the bit flip so you can make specific rhythms. The CV range lets you control the range of CV values or notes that are played. When you put it all the way down, it's just one note. You've probably noticed by now that sequence 1 isn't really random, but sequence 2 is very random. And this is because the corrupt knob was down all the way on sequence 1. When you turn it up before noon, the notes become more randomized. And when you put it up past noon, the rhythms become randomized as well. And again, you can turn these two 8-step sequencers into a 16-step sequencer by pressing the chain sequence button. You can only save one sequence to Labyrinth to recall, and I actually think that's pretty good because it forces you to mostly just embrace the randomness. You can use this knob over here to control which sequencer's rhythms have a more dominant presence. So one can be louder and feel more like accented notes, and the other one can be quieter. There's also a noise generator, and you can control the tone of the noise that's produced. There's also a ring modulation that you can blend in. My favorite semi-modular synth to pair this with is the DFAM, so I'm going to make a random bass line with Labyrinth. And then I'm going to dial in a white noise beat on DFAM with some quirky pitches. And then over all that, I'm going to add some chords with the replay. And all that sounds like this. Where Labyrinth starts to become really amazing is when you integrate it with modular synth. You can take this out of its housing and put it into a modular synth case like this, and my friend Frederick Foxtrot and I are going to make a really fun patch with this. We're going to start by setting a BPM with Pamela's Pro Workout, and we're going to send the different divisions of the tempo to different modules. So first it's going into the DFAM for a drum line, and then the Labyrinth into Nautilus for a glitchy sequence, and Misha into Wave Transformer for a bass line. And then the board brain monitor is going to send that out into your ears. And all that sounds like this. Now we're going to use it to create a more ambient patch. I'm going to make a patch with Labyrinth and send it through the Afterneath Reverb module. Then I'm going to make a sequence on Misha and send that through the wave transformer for a slowly moving bass line. I'm also going to send Labyrinth's white noise into the board brain EQ and Morphogene for some filtering and slight glitches. And all that sounds like this. Thank you so much to Moog for sending me the Labyrinth and for sponsoring today's video.